the fencing space. His name is Mark. He owns a company called SWI Fence. They operate in quite a few areas, quite a few locations, and so let's welcome Mark.
How's it going?
Doing quite all right, my man. Quite all right. So, just diving in here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of got started in the fencing space.
Well, I can assure you that I didn't start out thinking this was going to be my lifelong career. It ended up being a summer job because my parents thought I needed to learn how to work, and so they got with somebody at church that built fences. Said, "Hey, we found the perfect job for you," and that was my introduction to fencing. My introduction was probably a little rougher than most. I ended up working for him all summer. We started in like March, so about this time of year, maybe a little earlier. And then I worked all the way through the summer. And for that, this is like 1994. I made $300 a month during the summer and $150 a month during the school year. Probably a little less than $1 an hour is what that ended up being. And to give you an idea, minimum wage was probably four something then. But luckily, we did get all the room and board, which consisted of anything that you could eat out of a can that didn't require any cooking, and then room consisted of sleeping in, on, or underneath pickup trucks out in the middle of nowhere across the state of Wyoming as we built these fences. So that was my introduction. We had no equipment. The best equipment we had was a 9-inch tractor and horses. We didn't own an auger, so it was all done the hard way through rocks and hand digging, and it was pretty terrible. And people ask me why I stuck with it, and it's because the next job that I got after that was working for my now in-laws. I was 15 years old, and they got done doing that, and they said, "Hey, well, we need some fences done around our place. So if you're going to date our daughter, you may as well do the fences, and we'll let you have all the pop you can drink and all the cookies you can eat, and we'll allow you to date our daughter." So that's pretty much how I got sucked into this, and then I got the taste of freedom of being my own employer, and I just can't imagine doing anything else.
You were kind of held for ransom then.
Yeah, something like that. They paid me a lot better though. They paid me $6 an hour, so that was like a
Oh,
six-fold increase to what I was making. So
there we
I
go.
would probably be a little bitter about all that if he hadn't have taught me how to work and then gave me a lifelong career. So
Awesome.
that's how I got into it.
So on those early days driving across Wyoming, was it like fencing for farm? Was it barbed wire fencing, privacy fencing? What kind of
Yeah, it
fence?
was all barbed wire. He was strictly agricultural, so we were doing corrals, we were doing stuff for ranches, stuff for the game and fish. Um, no real farm fences, and definitely no backyard stuff. No yard fencing at all. It was all agricultural related, so barbed wire, post and pole, stuff like that.
So kind of
Spent a
moving,
couple of weeks just even clearing logs in the
yeah.
mountains of Wyoming, just so we could build fence through it. So
So kind of like moving forward, when did you venture out and start your own kind of fencing hustle, as you will?
yeah, so I mean, I started my fencing hustle after we worked for my in-laws. We went down the road, and then the farmer down the road that was really good friends with my in-laws, that my father-in-law was working for, said, "Hey, come do my fence." And then more and more people in the immediate vicinity of that said, "Hey, I need a little bit of fence done." So we started doing some of that. And I was a sophomore, no, I was a junior in high school, basically, when we started that side hustle. Um, still going to school and doing all that stuff. And I had a couple interim jobs, but always did fencing. And every time something didn't work out, I went straight back to fencing. I've only really been employed by three people my entire life that weren't me. So two of those
Unemployed.
I was fired from, and the third person, uh, yeah, the third one. I mean, I quit, but just to go to University of Wyoming, but I probably would have got fired from that one too. Who am I kidding?
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneur through and through. It's just unemployable. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, straight up unemployable.
So you're 17, you're building fences, 18. What are some of the early mistakes, the hardships that you remember from those days of just starting out? Got any horror stories for me?
Yeah, the biggest mistake I made was when you're that young. One of the first things you do is you go out to your friend circle, and that's who you end up employing, and that's probably a terrible idea. In fact, I know it's a terrible idea. Friendship and work don't usually work out well. So I learned early on that it's really tough to be friends with people at work because it just doesn't work. So
So,
finding people that are outside of your friend group is probably the best thing. Family is can be difficult as well.
so friendships. Did you start this business with your brother? And you were
Uh, Sorry, go ahead. Finish your. Sorry.
so with your brother, assuming obviously family businesses, brother businesses, friendship businesses, hard to make work. But did you start this business with your brother?
I did. So I started it with my older brother, and through the whole trial, it took us 10 years to crash and burn, but we crashed and burned. And then he went back to being an electrician because he was basically a journeyman electrician by trade before we got into starting our full blown fence company. And then when that crashed and burned, he decided he'd rather go back and do that. And him and I probably just don't belong in business together. We get along just fine as long as we're not in business, but we've just got two completely different personalities that didn't jive. And both of us are strong willed and hard headed. And, you know, there always has to be one that's strong-willed and hard-headed, and one that's a little bit easier to forgive and just brush things off and say, okay, it doesn't matter. It's all small stuff. So now I'm in business with my younger brother, which is working much better.
Yeah, personality differences.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to be strong-willed, and he's got to he's got to listen, right?
Yeah, and obviously he's still an entrepreneur in his own, so that just tells you he's kind of driven to do his thing. And like I say, two people trying to run the ship doesn't work out so good.
A couple of captains. We don't know which
Yep.
direction we're going. Awesome. So you're 17, 18. When does this business really kind of start to take off? What does that look like? Is it, straight out of high school? You mentioned college. Is it after college?
Mhm.
When did it kind of start to take off?
So I mean, I would call it a tinker. Like anytime I didn't have something to do or I wanted to make some extra money, we would build fences. Then I went into college, um, did the college thing, and when I was in college, I was working for CarQuest, and then CarQuest transferred me to Nebraska to be a store manager, and I was like 23 years old, one of the youngest store managers probably in the nation. Now that lasted exactly a year before I got fired from that job, and ended up mad dashing it back to Wyoming and worked on a rig, which we had a week on, a week off. And during that week off, what I did was build fence, and I finally said, um, and the rig was trying to get me to go become a directional driller. And so I told my mother-in-law that I was thinking about being a directional driller, but at the same time, I was actually starting this, legitimate fence company, paying taxes and doing all that stuff. And she said, "Well, you got to decide what you're going to do." And I went back the next week. This is like June, July, in 2002, and said, "I quit. I'm done." And we had had enough business just from the beginning of the year because we started in like January or February, but started landing some big jobs and quit that job. And I've never had another job since. It's just been that since 2002, straightforward. Um, Even after the the disaster that was Olsen fencing, which is how we started. 2012, that basically ended, and then 2014, after cleaning up that mess, we rebirthed ourselves, I guess, as SWI. And um, the difference between the two companies, Olsen Fencing and SWI, the quality difference is there isn't one, but as far as how they're run and how successful they are, SWI is Olsen Fencing was just a train wreck. We had success, and it was, I mean, but we didn't know what to do. We were just terrible at it. We've gone so far past what Olsen Fencing ever did in 10 years. In the same amount of time, we've just rocketed right past anything they've done.
So
So
Olsen Fencing, what is Olsen Fencing? Was that your first business, and then you?
that was what we ran basically from the time I stopped working for Carl Jones, that old farmer rancher. It was anytime we built fencing, it was called Olsen Fencing, and then in 2002 we made it legitimate and ran that until 2012, at which point we went bankrupt.
Okay.
And that was a point in time in my life where I thought I'd have to go get a job, and the thought of getting a job terrified me. But I put out resumes all over the place and couldn't get a single person to call me uh, to offer me a job. And so by force, again, I was forced right back into the same life because the phone was still ringing, and we're like, this is what I know how to do, so I got to feed the family. And my younger brother and I just kind of expected everything to dry up, and then we'd go find real jobs, and nothing ever dried up, and nobody ever offered us a job. So we just looked at each other and said, "Hey, you want to just keep doing this?" So okay, well, let's try it again, and it's been a really good thing. Not stress free by any means, but way better than Olsen fencing.
So, did you have any partners in Olsen fencing? Was that your older
Yeah,
brother?
just my older brother and I. Yep, and now it's my younger brother and I, plus Dan, who also is not yet an owner, also does some of the stuff on YouTube though with us.
So, take me back. It's 2002. How are you getting customers at this point? Is it just strictly because you're in a small town?
You seem kind of young, so this is we're gonna go in the way back time machine. But like that's why people were called AAA Fence, is because they wanted to be at the top of the phone book. So we got customers through things like radio, newspaper, and phone books, and we don't do any of that stuff anymore. None of it. So
Okay.
that's how we got customers, and then just going around talking to general contractors that were building homes, and establishing a reputation. But that's what we did. Yeah, phone book was the big one.
So, moving in, like loyal customers, repeat customers obviously build your business. What would you say the most important thing that you did that was like a contributing factor to you getting repeat customers? What did that kind of look like? Was it just doing a really good job and working hard? Is there any strategies there, or
Yeah, the same thing that gets us customers now. It's do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Be dependable.
do you have
You got to
anything?
do quality work, but if you say you're going to be there on Tuesday, be there on Tuesday. If you say that you're going to, start their job, then don't start their job, work a day, and then pull off and not come back for 5 days. Like, be efficient. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it.
So when we talk about marketing, what works for you guys now as a business? Obviously, you guys have expanded quite a bit, and you're all over the place. You were mentioning Las Vegas, obviously Wyoming and Florida. What do you guys do now? That's kind of an outlier, or is it just a mix of everything?
The biggest thing that we do now that's probably an outlier that sets us apart from everybody else is YouTube. YouTube is a huge brand tool, I guess I would say. And aside from that, right alongside that, because it's owned by the same company as Google, we do a lot of stuff on Google. In Wyoming, we don't do any Google, but Google has been the secret to our success and our ability to ramp up in Florida for sure. There's no other form of advertising out there right now that's going to get you the results that Google will. And I'm a total Facebook hater. I hate Facebook. I don't want anything to do with Facebook ads. We've done some Facebook ads, but that has been the worst marketing our company's ever done, and the worst money we've spent. I may as well put it on. I may as well put it in the newspaper, on radio again. I could have maybe found a phone book. Would have done about the same thing for me that Facebook does. Hate
Really?
Facebook. It's just so terrible for us. Yes.
Wow. I would argue those points, but it's
For
definitely
our, and
nice to have
I'll tell
that.
you, I would like to tell you why. If you're interested in knowing why,
Yeah,
I'll tell you
of
why.
course, go for it.
So Facebook is people that are impulsive, and they see the ad and they click on the ad, which always costs us money. And all they want to know is what our price per foot is. That's all they care about. It's all price related, price driven, and that's not what our company is about. We
Hmm.
market ourselves to be very good at what we do, to give you a quality product. And we're not at all focused on price. I don't care what Tim's price down the street was, because he's not doing the same stuff we are. I only care about what our price is. And if you've researched any fence companies and you find what we're doing is of value, then you'll pay what we're asking. But the people on Facebook are 100% price driven. That's all they want to know is how much per foot. That's all they care. And we don't even price things by the foot. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I have nothing to say to that other than you're lazy. And if you want to be lazy and hopefully try and get something. The other thing we see too is that people will, like if people are always on these groups and stuff saying, "Oh, who do you recommend for a fence contractor?" And the quickest way to find out who all the hacks in town are is that's who's going to be saying, "Hey, I do fences." The people that want fences know where to go for the reputable stuff. That's code for who can I use that's going to get me a fence for a case of beer and $10, and that's just not us. So.
Hmm.
Facebook is not where we go for business. It is terrible for our business. I don't want anything to do with Facebook advertising. Um, but Google's great. I love Google. Because when they go to Google, they can research our website and they
Yeah.
can do a lot more to really research the company that we are and find out what sets us apart. But Facebook's just a completely different animal, and it just doesn't work for us.
Yeah, Google is much more, obviously somebody has to search for it. The only downside being people have to search for it, right? So, um, there's only so much demand, right? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Facebook leads are definitely you really have to have like almost a sales organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's hammer, 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 hammer. Um, and obviously being just a quality fencing contractor that's got a great brand, definitely don't have to be doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah, so we don't use any Facebook marketing in Florida. We tried it even because everybody says, "Oh, down here it's different." Well, we would get a lot of response, but it didn't equate to sales. Like I have the numbers to back it up that says
Hmm.
it did not equate to sales. All we did was flush money down the toilet the whole time we did it.
Hmm.
Google has gets us results. We have conversion rates with Google that are great. We sell fences off of Google. And in Wyoming, we're just established enough here that people that know what we do, they just know who we are, and we do zero advertising outside of our YouTube.
Awesome.
That's the only thing I could consider advertising here in Wyoming. And then we wrap all our trucks and stuff just so people know. But that's really all the marketing we do is just our signage, trucks, and YouTube in Wyoming.
So in 2012, you guys kind of start back up. Phone's still ringing for fences. When does the company start to catch more and more traction? What year is that?
So okay, yeah. So 2012, SW or Olsen Fencing kind of ceased to exist, and SWI stepped in just to kind of finish contracts and stuff. Because when we went to meet with the bankruptcy attorney, he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And we're like, "Well, it's the only thing we know how to do, so we kind of want to stay building fence." And then Carl was even involved in that, my older brother, until he decided this is just not what I want to do anymore, and he left. And then that's when Alan and I were doing this. So we didn't actually start SWI until 2014 after kind of cleaning all that mess up, but we're building fences the entire time. There was a short period of time where we were called Site Work Incorporated,
Hmm.
and that's where SWI comes from. So people ask us what's SWI stand for. Well, technically nothing because there was Site Work Incorporated that was completely different. And
Ah,
that's when we had to come up with something. We're like, okay, we kind of crash and burn with Olsen Fencing. Now we're calling ourselves Site Work Incorporated. We don't want to rebrand again after we clean up this mess because that was another company that my older brother and I started. Rather than rebrand again, let's do something. We're just going to call ourselves SWI because we already have the initials. The logo's the same. We're just going to add LLC to the end of it, and we'll just be SWI LLC. So when everybody said, "Well, what's SWI stand for?" We're like, basically it means nothing because it used to kind of mean Site Work Incorporated, but that's not who we are now. And so we had a competition about a year into getting all those questions, and one of our salesmen, our lead sales guy, said, "Hey, service with integrity." So that's what it stands for now, but that's not how it started out.
nice, nice. So what year is it? 2014 officially.
2014, and to give you an idea, when we ended SW or Olsen Fencing, our record year was like $3 million. We started 2014 and did 1.9 with like 5 people,
Wow.
and like I mean, it's just right out of the gate, just And the worst part about that is that we had all the work, but we had zero credit. We had
Hmm.
zero credit, zero cash. I mean, I'd just gone through bankruptcy. There's no money, so it had startup challenges that were different from the ones that we experienced with Olsen Fencing. We had all the work we could handle and no money, so that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And then just kind of I don't know. I can't really pinpoint a time when I'm like, oh, well, now we've made it. I still feel like we struggle. I mean, there's never been a point where I like, okay, I can just sit back and rest on my laurels now because we got this. Like every year, there's some new challenge. Right now, we just can't find people. Can't find enough people.
Hmm.
Got tons and tons of work, and there still just isn't enough people to work.
So talking about people, what was your experience like in the beginning days of kind of hiring your first employees? Because it's a big step for a lot of people, right? You have a lot of people who are in
Mhm.
the truck, kind of working the tools, and then they want to get out. Maybe they want to start selling, right? And they got to hire a team. They got to start hiring people. What was that like in the beginning, and kind of how has that changed? I know you just mentioned it's harder now, but
So in the beginning at Olsen Fencing, we started just hiring part-time people, and we kind of lucked into some good people. But we had a different mentality back then. Um, we had the mentality. I was young, and I was like, "These people are here, and I sign your paycheck, and you'll do what I say." And through the whole process of Olsen Fencing, that's one thing we learned, or one thing that I learned for sure, is that uh, they're you're not hiring slaves. You need to treat these people with kindness and respect, and expect the same from them that you would want them to treat you. And so we really became what we like to call servant leaders, and we do as much as we can. We still are running a business here. This isn't a charity. You need to pull your weight, but we like to try and help people out, and we like to try and give them a great place to work with all the right benefits. And I don't feel like their whole purpose in life, because I signed their paycheck, is owed to me. It's we're in this together as a team, and as the water rises, the ship floats higher. So.
Any kind of nightmare employee
Oh yeah.
stories you can bring up?
I don't know. There's so many. You have to tell me one off the top of my head. Let's see. Yeah, okay, I got one. Yeah, salesperson. Uh, I'm probably going to do a TikTok on this eventually. It's needed to be done, but there's different levels of crazy when it comes to cat people, and the pinnacle of cat crazy comes from this particular salesman who lived with his cat. His cat was his entire life, and would not do his job because he needed to babysit his cat. His cat would ride around in his car with him all everywhere. And and even after he left, he still had emails for like all of our people, and would send out these emails to our entire team. Anybody that he thought had an email that he could find, he'd send out bulk emails telling them what a terrible person I was, and I went bankrupt, which I don't hide. I don't hide any of that. I never have hidden any of the fact that I failed. I was a part of a hospital board in our town, and the hospital district was really facing some struggles because they had some lawsuits against them, and they ended up going through a bankruptcy as well at the same time. And so he attributed the hospital's bankruptcy to me. It was all my fault. Like, I'm just a board member. I had nothing to do with spending it. I mean, like, this is really not on me at all.
Yeah.
All the stuff that caused those lawsuits happened way before I was on the board. Like, I don't have anything to do with this. But yeah, so he every once in a while, this person pops up, and we'll get this random email that, because he's just waiting for the ship to sink, and he's going to be waiting a while, because we met him in 2018, early 2018, and I think maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, he sent out another email, just reminding us that he's around. Always from anonymous emails. We know who it is. But this guy is definitely at the pinnacle of cat crazy for sure.
Yeah. There's levels to the cat game, that's for sure.
Yeah, he had this like a wool coat, and it was just covered in cat hair,
Oh,
just
there we go.
covered in cat hair.
There we go.
Yeah, he
Sounds like
was
a
an interesting duck.
very stand-up guy, that's for sure.
I'm sure he's out there just freaking crushing it.
I'm sure he's got his cats around.
Hmm.
When it comes to sourcing employees, where are you pulling employees from? Is it Indeed? Like where are you advertising for them at?
So we have what's called Applicant Pro. It's a company. I think they were started up a few years ago when we first got a hold of them out of Utah, and that's been really good to help us craft an application process so that people can do that all online. And then they post it out to Monster, Indeed, to multiple different boards. But that game's constantly changing. It's never fixed, and we're always trying to make sure that we're meeting the requirements. Used to be that was one of the places we could get some people, was Facebook, and then Facebook stopped their employment section about a year ago, year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I want to say that they stopped letting anybody. So you can do it on there, but you just have to do it on your page. It doesn't get the reach.
Yeah.
And we had some success on Facebook, but there again, the people that we got on Facebook, it was not a great experience there either, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can run employment ads on Facebook, like phone call ads, where people have to like call your phone, or even like a lead form, and they fill out the job application. But it's pretty hit and miss on
yeah.
finding installers and whatnot. But again, on people, how important is the right person in your organization, and like making sure you don't make the bad hire, because you're in a pinch, you got tons of work sold, you need to start installing. Mistakes love a rush decision. So how important is making sure that you're hiring the right person on your team?
Yeah, I've been on both sides of this. Sometimes we've had to hire people just because they were a warm body, and even though we didn't feel like they were 100% the right person, they were going to help us move the ball forward. We just knew they weren't going to move it that far forward, and we were probably going to be looking for somebody soon. Um, but the better, what's really helped us a lot is making sure we're extremely competitive on our wage. In the beginning, we tried to get people for as cheap as we possibly could, and there again, we are higher priced because we have better people. So we're paying our people better. These are people that are making, uh, they're making a career wage. It's not, we're not paying people $14 an hour, $12 an hour. They can't, these are people are buying houses and vehicles and stuff like that. Our top people are making six figures easily. We have multiple people, just even installers making six figures. So we've wanted to be like the Costco of the fencing world, where you just people are treated well, they're paid well, they're compensated well, and that has led us to the best talent that we have. But when we make a mistake, trying to realize that we're not married to that mistake and correcting it as fast as possible. The biggest mistakes I've made in hiring is not in the hire necessarily itself, but in how long I let that person stay there when we knew they weren't a fit.
So on that, how long do you go? Let's say you hire them, it's 1 month in, and there are just red flags everywhere. Showing
Mm,
the plate. How long is your decision making process before you decide that this person just is a cancer to our culture and we gotta get them gone?
it's a real balancing act because I've had people that were, it was terrible, but sometimes you hire the right person in the wrong position. And so we're really trying to work through some of that stuff. Is this just a training issue? Is it a coaching issue? Can we coach these people through it? I don't just want to be like, hey, I'm not putting any effort into you and fire people. That's not
Hmm.
what we want to do. We want to say, hey, we're struggling here. What do we have to do to get you where we need to be? And we try and coach them through that. But man, if in 90 days you're still and they're just right where they were when got hired, yeah, we want them gone. It's just, and if they become, I think the biggest red flag for me is a bad attitude because you can't coach through that. If you have a bad attitude, especially early on, it's not going to get better. Um, One of the jobs I was fired slash quit was I was washing tractors for an implement company, and that's basically what I was hired to do. And I was frustrated because they wouldn't let me move up. They wouldn't let me assemble things, do a little bit of light mechanicing. And I just had a bad attitude. And they said, "Hey, you've got a choice. Either you can change your attitude, or you can find a new place to work." And I was like, "It's gonna be easier for me to find a new place to work." And that's when I went to fencing again. So bad
Unemployable,
attitudes. Once
unemployable.
people and they're just that rotten apple will poison the whole tree. I mean, they absolutely will. I've watched it happen so many times. So when I have somebody that's just a cancer, it's time for them to go for sure.
Do you have a specific kind of story that you can tell about the one person, and then you got to fire like seven people just because that one person just ruined it?
I don't have a story where one person's run off several people, but I've had in our shops. One of the hardest things to do is shop, and it's not a difficult thing, but sometimes I think it maybe can be lonely. And those shop guys sometimes they can just be a cancer. Yeah, I've had one person ruin a few people. I
Hmm.
mean, we just had that problem in Florida and had two people that were really negative and had to make the decision that it's best if they go because if they keep this negativity, they'll poison everybody else, and then we'll be back to square one, and we just can't do that. So,
And what are some of those things? Like, what are some of the things that crop up that you start to say these are some red flags?
uh, the real thing is just the attitude. The attitude matters. Like you can be the most okayest employee ever as far as performing your duties, but if you have a great attitude, I'll probably keep investing in you. You could be the best employee in the world and have a terrible attitude, and I'm going to be looking to get rid of you tomorrow. I mean, the attitude is everything. They need to be coachable,
Yeah.
and you can't coach people through a bad attitude.
So, kind of moving on, can you tell us a little bit about where SWI Fence is today as a business, the locations, kind of what you're doing there?
Yeah, so we've got the three locations in Wyoming, one in Florida. Obviously, we're doing work further away than Wyoming. That's why we've got crews in Vegas. But yeah, we just when we started, it was myself, my brother, and then we had two or three people with us that actually helped us auction off all the equipment, and they stayed to help us start the new company. And two of those people are still here. One of them is our chief estimator, and the other one's our superintendent that's running the biggest job that we've ever been on. So,
Wow.
and this is 10 years plus now. Both of them just crossed 11 years with us. So before, I mean, they got to help us sell our equipment, and still like, this is kind of weird, but we're gonna stick with you guys because we like you.
So, like revenue wise, I don't know if you can get into the numbers, but do you guys know what you're kind of pacing for this year?
Yeah, we should be somewhere between all. I think, I think this year we'll probably cross 15 million between everything.
Wow, it's a
Um,
sizable business. What's the head count on that? How many employees?
we're running right now right around 55,
Wow.
55 people between
Wow.
all locations. Yeah, somewhere in there. 55. It's 55 to 60 people, somewhere in there.
And you just said you guys made a pretty big bet. Can you get into what that is? Kind of the expansion of the business?
Mm, the big bet. Did we make a big bet?
I don't know. I thought I heard you say something about you guys just made a big bet.
Oh, we're always betting. I'm a gambler. I mean, I'm such a junkie.
What
Uh,
what what are the future plans? The next kind of 3, 5 years? Where are you guys looking as a business?
yeah, I get even bigger. I mean, I want to be $100 million company, in the next 10 years. In fact, actually, that was my goal last year. So 9 years, I want to be $100 million company, and I think we can do that.
Is that commercial mostly? Is that residential? Just a good mix of both?
That's a good question that I'm not going to answer. I'm going to stay a little silent.
That's the bet.
That's,
uh,
yeah, no, that's yeah. We've got a couple things that we're working on. I've got two really big things that we're really not ready to talk about, but
mhm.
that will be coming out in the next year.
Okay.
And I think that is just tailors. One of the biggest bets I ever made was when I told my brother I wanted to do YouTube, and then I said, I can't do the editing. I'm not going to do editing, so I want to hire a photographer, or a videographer. And my other brother probably would have fought me on it, but he was like, okay, I mean, this sounds crazy, but he didn't say that. He didn't say anything. He's just like, okay, I mean, you do what you're going to do because I know you. But I think at the time he thought I was absolutely off my freaking rocker, and now he's like, that was probably one of the smartest things we ever did.
Mhm. So I know you
So.
guys have a supply kind of company in Wyoming.
Mhm.
You just sell to local fencing contractors? Is that kind of, or do you guys ship nationwide?
Yeah, yeah, and that's we ship nationwide to anything that's easily shipped.
Mhm.
But we have some things that are pretty difficult to ship. They're unique to our company, and people can't find them anywhere else. And we ship those every day, all day. Unique fencing tools that are hard to find other places. What we like to say is that we like to provide the training and the tools for the professionals. So whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or a professional, we're trying to teach people and give you the stuff that you need to be successful. And so it's really cool to watch both fence contractors and do-it-yourself customers send us pictures of the projects that they've worked on with our help from
Mhm.
our YouTube videos and be like, without you guys, I couldn't have done this. Thank you. So, but
Awesome.
yeah, we ship them product all over the country, and then locally for stuff here and like material packages, it's a lot easier for us to sell to some of the smaller contractors, and we're building a pretty good rapport with a lot of the smaller people and helping them get their businesses off the ground. And it's a good win-win for us and them. So
Awesome. So if you could give kind of, you mentioned smaller guys there. Glad you brought that up. If you could give a few pieces of advice, for a young Mark who's, 21, 22, maybe he's 33, and he's getting into the fence, deck building kind of trade, what would you tell young Mark?
find a mentor. I wish I would have had a mentor. If I could have had a mentor, I'd be much richer today than I am. If I wasted so much money learning all these lessons the hard way, if I would have had a coach that would have taken the time to help tell me the things I should and should not be doing and run ideas past, then I mean maybe if I had a mentor, they would have talked me out of some of the things that I've done that were really good, but they could have probably saved me a bunch of money at the same time.
So how do
Um,
you go about finding a mentor? Do they just like find a business and call them up and see if they can get the owner on the phone? Do they go certain places? What is?
Yeah, so the best way to find a mentor is almost everybody has a trade organization. So go get involved in that, and you're going to find people that maybe they're not like technically your official mentor, but they're willing to take your call and help coach you. I don't know how many people a week that I talk to just because of what we do. People will call me up or message me on Facebook or any of the other numerous ways, and I try to make myself available because it was so important to me that the people that took the time to talk to me, I want to make sure and return that favor to everybody else. I only have so much time. At some point in time, it's probably going to be overwhelming, and I may have to throttle that back or have people help me with that. But right now, I really try and answer as many of those questions and take as many of those calls as I possibly can. So
Awesome. No, it's awesome. Your YouTube channel is great. You know, you have that other secondary YouTube channel where it's directly correlated to helping smaller contractors get bigger. Um,
one thing I will say, I'm gonna, if you are looking for a mentor and you reach out to somebody like myself or somebody else that may be very busy, be direct with your question. Don't say any tips on helping me start my business because that's too broad. Like I have spent hours and hours talking about that stuff on YouTube. So maybe be like, okay, what's some things I could do? Like with some of the questions you're answering, what's some things I could do to help me hire my first employer?
mhm.
What's some things I should know about hiring employees? Try and be a little bit more narrow it down to what you really need help with in that one particular instance. Don't be like, okay, I'm starting a business. What do I need to know? Well, there's a lot.
Taxes.
Never, ever, ever miss taxes. I've done that, and trust me, you do not want to owe the government money.
No, you don't. No, they will
They will
come for
in
it.
your life. They don't go away ever. It's like student loans; they're not bankruptable. You can't get away from them. That is payroll taxes. Make sure they're paid, and
You
don't try
can
this 1099 subcontractor BS if they're really employees.
if by the way, a note, 1099 contract or W-2 payroll taxes are technically special category of taxes that they can send. They're the only tax category, trust taxes, that they can send you to prison for. So if you don't pay them, if you withhold them, don't pay them, or don't withhold them, whatever, they can send you to federal prison for it.
I
So
think they can do that too for like income tax if you don't pay that. But I mean, the payroll taxes that is a big deal. You do not want to owe on payroll taxes.
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah,
due weekly for us, and you don't miss a payment. And it's the penalties are huge, and they
yeah,
rack up very very fast.
yeah. They're not very nice about that one. That's for sure.
There's a contractor here in Wyoming that owed like 1.2 million. Well, in fact, the weird thing is it's a contractor that went back and finished up the job that we went broke on. He ended up not paying his payroll taxes during that whole project. So the whole story is kind of crazy, but the long and short of it is ended up owing about 1.2 million in payroll taxes, and he was done, and he's probably still paying on them today. This is probably 2018 that this went down,
Ouch.
and I guarantee he's still paying on them today. I mean, they will chase you down and garnish your. That's the government; they know everything.
Yes, they
They'll
do.
get you.
So if you took anything away from today's podcast, make sure you pay your taxes.
Pay, payroll taxes are there. Yeah, we pay them every week, and it hurts, but we pay them every week.
Yeah,
Uh, and how
numbers.
many payroll taxes you have determines how fast you have to pay them. Sometimes you got to pay them within so many days of your pay period ending. So,
Yeah,
which
if
is
you're
why a lot of the larger employees pay weekly. I think.
smaller companies, 30-day or quarterly, you can get away with. But yeah, if you're bigger, you literally have to pay weekly payroll
Then
taxes.
there's two kinds. You have the payroll taxes, but then you also have your 1041s, which are still quarterly unless you get.
Yeah, yeah, you have your 940, your 941s, both trust taxes. So you got to make sure. And if you
Yeah.
use, do you use like a payroll software like Gusto?
So we worked on QuickBooks for a very long time, but we started getting involved in enough different states, and it got started getting complex enough that we went to a payroll service. So we use Paychecks now. There's other ones out there. I think Oracle's one. Um, that just seemed to be the one that worked the best for what we do, and helps take some of the liability off of us as well. So
Yeah, for the smaller guys, Gusto is great. Gusto is
yeah,
really a very user friendly. Automatically withholds, automatically sends the forms, pays the taxes for you. So Makes it super, super.
Honestly, if you're a new guy, I would recommend not even doing your own payroll. I would send it to somebody else and let them manage it because, like I say, it's such a big deal that it can really get you sideways and screw you up for years to come.
Yeah, we had a small cleaning business. It did about 500,000 a year, but I paid. We were using QuickBooks, but when I signed up for QuickBooks payroll, I checked some of the wrong boxes, so I would have to manually go in and pay my state taxes and my federal like unemployment taxes, 940s, 941s, etc. So like I
Hmm.
learned the hard way, like to manually go in and do everything, which I'm glad because I know how to do it, but it's really, really, really stressful. That's for sure. Extremely
Yep.
stressful. There's been some lost sleep on my end as far as the tax thing goes. Well, awesome. Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
you're a legend in the space. You're building a behemoth. I think 100 million is more than doable for you. Great content. Check out his YouTube channel, guys. Check it out on social. It's a ton of really good content. And on the business side too, he gives gems everywhere. I mean, this guy will save you 5 years of business if you just dedicate a couple of weekends to skipping Netflix and chill, and do Mark Olson and chill instead. So I appreciate you coming on. And anything else that you kind of want to add?
No, I mean, I just one of the things it's if you're failing, just know it's not the end of the world either. I mean, you can come back from it. I did, and I tell everybody I don't know where the quote came from, but somebody said success is just the mountain of failure you're standing on, and that's I mean, it feels true. I'm still like climbing up that mountain, but one day maybe I'll have some success or feel like it. So,
Awesome, guys. Go support Mark. Show him some love, and yeah, we'll see you on the next podcast.